Once upon a time there was a snowman who lived in a cold, snowy forest. He was made of 3 large snowballs stacked on top of each other, with coal for his eyes, nose, mouth and buttons down his belly. The snowman loved his forest home, but he had never seen anything outside of the snowy woods where he lived. During the day, the snowman gazed up at the bright blue sky above the treetops and wondered what the sun looked like up close. At night, he stared in awe at the twinkling stars and flickering northern lights that danced across the heavens. The snowman dreamed of going on an adventure to see the world beyond his little forest. One cold, crisp morning, the snowman decided today was the day he would finally set off on his big adventure. He waved goodbye to all his forest friends, the squirrels, deer, owls, rabbits, and bears. The animals would miss the snowman, but they knew how much he wanted to see the sun. The snowman headed east, following the rising sun through the snowy woods. He trekked through the deep snow, admiring the frosted evergreen trees and icy creeks along the way. As the snowman ventured farther from his home, the forest grew thinner. Eventually, the snowman reached the end of the forest. He stood at the edge of a huge open field blanketed in sparkling white snow that seemed to stretch on forever. For the first time, the snowman could see all the way to the horizon. As he gazed across the field, his coal-button mouth dropped open in amazement. There, peeking over the distant hills, was the sun. The snowman was mesmerized by the incredible view. The sun looked like a massive glowing fireball, so much bigger and brighter than it appeared through the treetops. The daylight sky was awash with pink, orange and yellow. "So that's the sun," the snowman exclaimed. "It's more beautiful than I ever imagined." The snowman strolled through the meadow, crunching the fresh powdery snow under his feet, admiring the winter flowers poking through the white blanket. He waved hello to a few fluffy rabbits that bounded by. As the snowman got closer to the sun, he started to feel quite warm. His smile faded. For the first time in his life, he was feeling hot. A drop of water dripped off his nose, he was starting to melt. The snowman realized if he kept going towards the sun, soon he would melt completely. "I wish I could get just a little closer, so I could see the sun even better, but I'm starting to melt," he said with a sigh. "I guess I should head back to my nice, cool forest home." Though he was sad to leave, the snowman knew how lucky he was to have made it this far on his adventure. As he turned and started trekking back across the field towards the forest, he thought about all the amazing things he had experienced that day. He couldn't wait to tell his forest friends all about his journey to see the sun. After a long walk, the snowman made it back to the woods just as the sun was setting over the hills behind him. His animal friends gathered excitedly around as he told them stories about his adventures. He described the sun so vividly that it was almost like they had seen it too. From that day on, the snowman spent every sunny day staring wistfully out of the woods towards the distant sun. He would always cherish the memory of the time he traveled across the meadow to see the glowing sunrise. Though he knew he could never make the trip to the sun again without melting, just knowing it was out there always made the snowman smile.